Okay. Thank you for joining us today. I'm going to call the May 20th, 21 meeting of the Human Relations Commission to order. Can we begin with an introduction of commission members? My name is Cody Severson, Vice Chair of the Commission.
I am Cheryl Schafel. I'm a member of the commission.
Barry Nelson, Commissioner.
I'm John Strand, City Commission Liaison.
Carolyn B. Kraft, Commissioner.
Ahmed Shil, Commissioner.
Hamida Dakhane, Commissioner.
Perfect. Thanks, folks. The next item is to approve the agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
And I would second it.
All those in favor say yay.
Yay.
Aye.
Okay, motion carried. Next item is to approve the minutes of the March 18th, 2021 meeting. Can I get a motion to approve those?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
I second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. All right, the next item is public comment. Those who wish to address the Human Relations Commission must use the sign-in sheet. Speakers must state their name and will be limited to 2 minutes. Comments should not contain profanity or personal attacks. Staff, do we have anyone signed up for public comment?
There was no one signed up on this sheet, no.
Okay. Okay. So next up, we will go into the Executive Committee nominations. At the March 18th meeting, the Human Relations Commission formed a nominating committee for the Executive Committee. Members Carolyn B. Kraft and Barry Nelson will now bring forward nominations received for the Executive Committee. Members may also bring forward additional nominations. With that, I will hand it over to Carolyn and Barry.
Barry and I met, and we looked at the bylaws. The bylaws say that the chair can serve 2 terms. The vice chair can serve 2 terms. In order to advance continuity of issues, we are proposing to renominate Matur as the chair, Cody Severson as the vice chair, with the expectation that Cody would fleet up, that's a Navy term, would fleet up to be the chair next year. That would provide a continuous continuity. Then Barry and I polled all the members of the commission to get their opinions. They were all in favor of that. So Barry and I are putting forward to nominate Matur as Allier as for the commission chair, and Cody Severson for the commission vice chair for next year. Are there any comments or questions?
Okay. Thank you. Is there a motion to nominate Matur Allier for the position of chair for the Human Relations Commission?
I'll make a motion.
Is there? Perfect. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
A?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. Is there a motion to nominate Cody Severson for the position of Vice Chair of the Human Relations Commission?
Excuse me, Chair.
Oh, sorry.
Who was the second? We didn't, oh, thank you.
Sorry,
Abdullah.
I forgot this
Ahmed.
was off.
Okay. Can I have a motion to nominate Cody Severson for the position of Vice Chair of the Human Relations Commission?
So moved.
Okay. Can I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
A.
Okay. Opposed, same sign. All right. Motion carries. Do members have any additional nominations for either the chair or vice chair positions? Okay. We will move on to item 6 then. The next item is a bias crime ordinance update. Nancy Morris from the city's attorney's office will provide an update on the bias crime ordinance efforts and next steps.
Thank you. I will take my mask off here. Nancy Morris, Assistant City Attorney for the City of Fargo. I'll just give a brief summary of the background and then where we're at. As you know, legislation was proposed this session to the House Judiciary Committee as House Bill 1443. That did not pass. It received a do not pass recommendation out of committee for a myriad of reasons. As a result, Commissioner Preston did propose that the City of Fargo explore enacting the anti-bias hate crime ordinances. When exploring new ordinances and establishing new crimes, the city oftentimes explores whether such crimes could possibly be preempted by state law. The City Commission directed the City Attorney's Office to research this issue and seek an attorney general opinion as to the issue of preemption. The Attorney General declined to issue such an opinion. I then opined to the City Commission that in fact preemption did not exist with respect to these particular crimes that are being considered. The only anti-bias hate crimes that we were able to locate in state law is North Dakota Century Code 12.1.1404, which is the discrimination in public places, and 12.1.1405, which is preventing the exercise of civil rights. And neither of these preempt the city from enacting ordinances that were similarly tailored to that presented to the state level. That opinion was presented to the City Commission on April 15th, and the City Commission directed the drafting of similar ordinances. 3 ordinances are now being discussed in draft form and will be presented to the City Commission in the near future. That is criminal mischief hate crime, harassment hate crime, and simple assault hate crime. As you know, the highest offense that a municipality may charge is a Class B misdemeanor, which carries a maximum penalty of a fine of $1,500 and 30 days in jail. All 3 of these would be identified as Class B misdemeanors, similar to their underlying crime. The new proposed ordinances simply add the same or similar language that the state legislation had proposed, specifically that the illegal conduct occurred because of the victim's perceived or actual protected characteristic. In other words, the person committing the crime did so in whole or in part because of the victim's actual or perceived race, color, religion, gender, disability, sexual orientation, gender identity, national origin, or ancestry. The motive for committing the crime is generally not an element of an offense. If the hate crime is charged, the reason the crime is committed becomes an element of the offense, and the prosecutor must prove all elements of the offense beyond a reasonable doubt in order to secure the conviction. The element is not that the victim is a member of the protected class, but rather that the reason for committing the underlying crime was because the victim is or is perceived to be a member of a protected class. Note that more serious crimes may be charged federally under 18 U.S. Code 249, hate crime acts. Further, I understand Birch Burdick has opined that he feels he has the tools in his toolbox to make a higher sentencing recommendation to address crimes committed because of the victim's perceived or actual characteristics. Thus, we anticipate many hate crimes will not be charged in municipal court if the evidence is clear that the crime was committed because of the victim's protected class, given that Class B misdemeanor is the highest offense available in the municipality. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on it?
Nancy, thank you. That was a really great summary, and I appreciate the work that I know that you've been putting into this to bring this forward. Would you care to comment? I understand that there is also that there will be a resolution that will be presented along with the ordinances. Would that be coming through your office, or will that be presented at the floor?
Well, I'll be working with the Chief of Police for that discussion, and that is, we're discussing the data compilations and such with, that will be by resolution and training.
Great, thank you.
And so you had mentioned that the next step was bringing that to the next city commission meeting?
Well, it will be brought soon. I think there is some discussion as to when that will occur. I'm working with the commissioner on that.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Next item up is the presentation from Fargo Youth Initiative. The Fargo Youth Initiative, a board made through Fargo high school students, will present on the year-long project about equity in schools and strategies for improving equity and belonging.
Hello. So as we were introduced, we are a group of Fargo high school students. Hold on, let me switch this slide. So what we are is we function as a group between the youth of Fargo and the city of Fargo as a liaison. So what we do is investigating needs and problems of the community, and then we research issues and make project recommendations to the Fargo City Commission on behalf of the youth in Fargo. So our mission is to empower the voice and unite the youth of Fargo through our actions, and we seek to create an atmosphere where the youth have a positive and sustainable impact on this community. For this year, we decided to split into subcommittees of mental health and studying racial equity, and we are the Racial Equity Subcommittee. So last fall, as FYI, we chose racial inequity as one of our 2 focus areas because it's both a school issue and an issue in the city of Fargo, as 18% of people in Fargo are young people. So last fall and winter, we conducted a survey with the Mental Health Subcommittee and across the school district and received 463 responses spread evenly across the 3 public schools in the city and fairly representative of the district's racial and ethnic makeup. Overall, we found that too many students are experiencing racism, with 1 in 2 students of color reporting having experienced racism or harassment based on the color of their skin, and too many report not getting justice after it happens. We also recognize that there are systemic problems contributing to this inequity. So systemic as in the discrimination, whether intentional or not, is part of a system like government policy. So things like poverty and trouble with public transportation. However, we are choosing an educational and justice focus for our analysis today. So here is a comparison of how students of different races reported experiencing racism or discrimination, feeling welcome in their school, and feeling represented in their curriculum in that graph. As you can see, there are some significant disparities between all of the groups, and overall, we see that 61% of respondents have witnessed discrimination in their schools, and 77% have witnessed it in their communities. So our key takeaways were that more education, inclusion, and accurate information on different cultures and taking racism more seriously is what is needed. So here we note that 55% of respondents were unaware of their school's policy on discrimination and harassment, and even more don't know what resources are available if they have been discriminated against. We also find that 45% of those who have reported an incident of discrimination or harassment said the offender faced no consequences, and 49% are unsure. And the responses in the bubbles recount students' experiences with the system of reporting, that they weren't taken seriously, were not even considered, and even that a student feared repercussions for themselves if the incident was reported. So first what we did is brainstorm, and then after coming up with a large list of possible ideas from all of our information, we ranked them and analyzed implementation of these ideas. Finally, we ended with a list of key ideas to support our main goals that will be discussed in the following slides. So these slides are provided to you all to see the pros and cons of each projected outcome that we've listed, so I'd just like to briefly explain what each outcome could look like. So an emphasis on Black History Month in February and Native American Heritage Month in November could look like reading projects and other forms of teaching in a history or even a language arts class. An anti-racism story campaign can be exercised through social media like Instagram or Facebook, or in the community gatherings, in the city, and would be similar to the Racism in North Dakota Schools Instagram account for high school and middle school students, but for the Fargo community as a whole. That Instagram account allowed for anonymous submissions of experiences with racism. An inclusive curriculum reform in an English class can include reading works of literature by authors of color, in an art class studying artwork by artists of color, and in history classes, this inclusivity can come in the form of assigning more than the current level of focus to the journeys of groups of people of color throughout history. For example, look into the perspective of more civil rights activists than Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks, or the Latin American and Native American civil rights movements. Inclusive curriculum reform can also come in the form of offering a world history course instead of or in addition to the current offering of only European history. The anti-racism talking circles are similar to the Story campaign, but are smaller, school-run, and in-person. Students discuss race with one another rather than being lectured, so it is a discussion. The elementary school show and tells would take place in the form of high school students and groups like FYI working with an elementary student to create a short presentation just as long or even shorter than our presentation right now, detailing an aspect of their own culture. So these short presentations are enough to keep the attention span of younger students and at the same time expose them to different cultures and customs. And a public stance against racism by the district or city is fairly self-explanatory, as it's just a public message. So on this chart, we categorize our pros and cons into the criteria of effectiveness and implementability, and then try to quantify their score. On the top left, you'll see our scoring method. So it's a non-exclusive rank from 1 to 6, effectiveness being that 6 is the highest and most positive impact, and on implementation challenges, 6 is the highest and the most cost. So we doubled the effectiveness, subtracted the implementability, and that's our total score. So the effectiveness is weighted by 2 because we feel that is more important and should be more taken into account. So the 2 that I've highlighted are the emphasis on Black History Month and Native American Heritage Month, and then the inclusive curriculum reform, as those have the highest long-term impact and the highest total score.
Next, we have the consequence/the justice side of these ideas. The anti-racism course is a course that would be offered as an educational consequence for those who have acted in a racist way, to hope that they can learn from their mistakes. The restorative justice model is a far lengthier process with multiple steps and actions, but is a very powerful way for anti-racism. The zero tolerance hate speech policy is another strict consequence-based system. For all of these ideas, we also have evidence and examples of them listed to the right as a link. Once again, we have the zero tolerance hate speech policy. And then next, we have adding more students to the Fargo Public Schools Equity Board, or PEACE, and this would bring more power for important viewpoints of students. Lastly, the status quo, or doing nothing. This comes with loads of consequences for the people of color in our community. This is the same scale that we ranked for the education ideas. And we have categorized all of these and highlighted the most effective models, which would be the restorative justice model and adding more students to PEACE. Today, we would be interested in hearing your feedback and how to best collaborate with the City of Fargo's ongoing racial equity efforts. For example, we know that there is an HRC work group that may be interested in working and analyzing our local system for filing discrimination complaints, which could also incorporate the youth and restorative justice model. We hope to form a task force and find funding for programs to reduce racial inequality in our community.
Thank you for letting us present. All of our contact information for our full subcommittee is on this slide as our Gmails, and then Caitlin's email as our staff liaison. She's our advisor for this group.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask how you identified the respondents in the surveys? Like, did you go through school counselors or?
So this survey was let out. So some English classes took it as part of a project, and it was a voluntary filling out, and it's anonymous.
Okay, thank you.
Could you please identify yourselves and what schools that you represent?
Yeah.
You did a wonderful job of presentation. I want to compliment you.
Oh,
but-
thank you. I'm a junior at Fargo North. My name is Arya Panvalkar.
I'm Abinya Kavasari. I also go to Fargo North, and I'm a freshman.
I just wanted to say, wow, this was a impressive project. Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was going to mention, I appreciate the suggestions that you make at the end, and I'm wondering how, I'm very seriously hoping to be able to connect with you on several things. One of the things that's come out in discussions about the hate crime that's going before the City Commission is, as we've talked to groups in the community, they have said, we would like to form a group that carries forward. It's not just a matter of passing an ordinance. We need to have efforts to make sure there's education and accountability and that kind of thing going forward. So as that's formed, I would love to have people from the Youth Initiative to be an integral part of that. So we've got your connections and would want to make that invitation. And if you have something going on that you'd like to invite us in return, I'd love to be a part of that.
Yes, definitely. We'll keep an eye out for that. Sounds good. Thank you.
Hi, you guys did good work. I just want to ask, one of your focus area is mental health. Is that what most of the students in school are experiencing, or you guys picked it up because it's an issue, national issue, or is it something that your friends and your colleagues are going through?
We picked it both because it was a personal issue and coming to light on more of a national level, but we did not touch that area of the survey. That part of the survey was dealt with our mental health subcommittee, which presented to a group. I'm not sure who they presented to because it wasn't the Human Relations Commission, but they presented about a month earlier.
Okay. And then I also wanted to ask, do you guys have a lot of support within the school when you guys are talking about racial equality and the issues that are important in your life and the life of the people in North Dakota? But I just wanted to know if you're getting support from the school and
in terms of school as a whole, I've noticed that people who, especially with the reporting system for incidents of harassment, have not been getting the support that they need. But personal support is there, whether it be with trusted teachers or other adults in the community or in school.
Okay, thank you.
I would also like to commend you on the project that you've undertaken. You did an incredible job.
Thank you.
You know, what we need and what this gives us, your participation in this, is hope for the future. Because we need people like you coming up. Hopefully one day you will sit up here. I do have a request, and I was wondering if you could possibly give us the survey that you did among your students.
I think we can do that, yes.
The questions, I would be very interested in the questions that that you asked.
Yeah.
And maybe even a more in-depth synopsis of what the responses were.
Yeah, we can do that.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem.
And thank you again for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Will that be it?
Yes, thank you for the
Okay.
presentation. All right, we'll move on to item 8. Does anybody else have any announcements to make? Okay, the next item is staff updates.
Excuse me, Cody.
Oh, sorry.
I thought of one.
Yep.
Just to mention in connection with Nancy Morris's presentation, Commissioner Preston and I have been going around to different groups in the community to talk about the hate crime ordinance. And so the next one is scheduled at the New American Consortium next Wednesday evening. We would invite people who are interested in learning more and have input to offer to attend. We're also very open if people want us to present to other groups to let us know, and we can certainly schedule this throughout. I think one thing that's really clear is you don't solve a problem by passing a law. There needs to be a really baseline community commitment to it and education, and so this is kind of like the beginning step of correcting an issue. So anyway, I would just ask anybody who's interested in learning more to let the commissioner or I know.
Perfect, thank you. All right, so staff updates next. Lieutenant Offeld. I think that's where.
I think I'm ready to go if there's no one else. So for staff updates, I appreciate the opportunity to speak today. What I really wanted to do, we had a couple questions from the commission from our last meeting in March that we were asked to address, and also from public comment at that last meeting. And so it gave us about a month and a half here to look into some of the things. And so I thought I would go down the list and then give a brief announcement of something exciting that we're had released last week, a couple of weeks ago at the end. And so update on bias crimes. We were asked to give an update on that from the month of March till now. And what we actually did was looked into the entire year of 2021. And there were 2 crimes that were reported to be with bias, and after investigation of one confirmed to be with bias, and of the other, which is still under investigation, appears that there was some type of bias motivation involved with that one also, but still under investigation. So we have 2 for the year that would fall into that category after investigation. Follow-ups from some of the public comment questions that we had. One of them, there's a woman that came up and was talking about housing complaints. And of course, I think it was discussed in the meeting a little bit, but a lot of that falls into a civil area, or it's of civil nature that we as a police department can't work with, but organizations such as High Plains Fair Housing is able to take some of those concerns or complaints from private individuals and work in that regard with them. And so, same lady had an issue with possible comments made against Muslims at her workplace. And so that would fall into a category of, with that comment, was there some type of crime committed? Was there harassment? Was there some type of threat? And then it would be with bias because of race or origin or something. And so if there was no other crime committed, that would again fall into some type of civil area where we'd have to address that at the workplace. Or there's also the Department of Labor, which can be contacted at the state level, and we have the ability to give that contact information. And so that would be our response to that. There was a comment about pride flags being stolen off of one of the bridges in our city, either the Veterans Memorial Bridge or the overpass, I believe, over I-94. So we looked into any thefts reported involving flags for the year within the city of Fargo. We had our crime analyst look into that. We could not find any evidence or any suggestion that anyone called us, or even a call for service was generated on something like that. And there were definitely no reports made for pride flags being stolen. Many other flags, I was surprised to see how many other flags had been taken in the city this last year, but no pride flags. So we could find, we could not find a report or even a call for service to look into that allegation. And then last thing that came up in public comment was any race-related data regarding traffic stops in our city, and that's something that Chief Sobolski has addressed at a few other meetings, and we don't have the technology available to narrow it down to race involved in traffic stops yet, but that is something that we're working towards in our next year's plan. And so something that we're working towards. We can't narrow it down that far yet with the technology and abilities that we have right now. So that came from public comment. Any questions on those before I move on? Very good. Last question from the commission we had was, what's the PD done to adapt to Muslim needs, especially in the midst of Ramadan? And so I was glad to get that question, because not only this year, but in many years past, especially with our cultural liaison officer, Officer Kempf, and prior to him, Sergeant Jacobson, and many others that we've had over the years, we've reached out to our Muslim community in many different ways, especially at our with our mosque leaders around prayer time. We do a lot of logistics and help with security with different services they have. For example, just last week we helped with the Eid. There was a large event to the north of town. Helped with logistics and security at that event, and did some outreach there. I wanted to make sure people felt safe and saw they had support from our agency. And so That's a very recent event to what we do. We also provide education, which we'll be updating within this year. I spoke to our cultural liaison officer, Officer Kempf, and we'll be doing some education to with our staff, just on calls for service, especially during Ramadan. There's parties and things like that they might be going to. We want them to go there with context as to what's happening and why it's happening. And so that type of education will be, I just lost, there I'm back, okay, will be occurring, I believe in the fall of the year is the soonest we could get that available. Last, we also reach out to businesses when we've seen some type of international or bias within the country, I should say, not international, some type of bias incident nationally. Most recently are against our Asian population nationally. And when we saw that occurring on a national scale, we made sure that not only our community engagement team, but also many of our shift officers were visiting a lot of our Asian businesses, because we have a lot of Asian businesses in our city, and along with some of the other cultural businesses, to make sure, we want to make sure people know we're there, we want to make sure that we're available, and we want people to feel safe. And so those are the answers, some of the questions that came up from last meeting. Any comment or question from me on those?
Quick, I got question times. In regards to data tracking, you said the technology is not there, but my question would be, so when officers doing a report or issuing a citation, is that information on those, are they indicated on those reports or citations? If I've seen some other cities, I'm not admitting how many tickets I got, but they do have a checkbox, describing the person, height, race, and etc. Does Fargo not have that already?
If I could address that, sir. Actually, so what we have is data where we made a stop and a citation was issued, but we do not have all the other stops where a warning may have been issued. So we don't have a complete picture of that traffic stop data. With some of the new software requests that we're making for next year's budget, we would be able to account for all of the stops. And so that's what Lieutenant Alfeld is referring to. So we have data on tickets issued, but that's only a portion of the traffic stops that have been made. And I think a lot of the concerns in various communities would be situations in which tickets weren't issued as well, to give that same perspective. We'll also be looking at whether or not any searches occurred of the vehicle, that type of information, and take a more, drill down more into that data to see if there are any particular issues there relative to profiling or other improprieties.
Thank you.
How about now? There we go. One last announcement. 2 Mondays ago, we did a video release. Our community engagement team did a video release on a video that we put together called Break the Silence. And it was in this room. It was 2 Mondays ago. And it's a video that we released to our entire community for anyone to use on suicide awareness and prevention. And we put that together. Our team will usually go into schools and do events there. And have gatherings where we can talk about these types of issues. Obviously with COVID, this time of year, or for this year, we weren't able to do that. And we used the funding for that to put this, in my opinion, very well-produced video together. And we released that 2 Mondays ago. It can be found at breakthesilencetogether.org. It can be shared to anyone. Since we released it, we've had 12,400 visits to that site. And so I see that as a great success. There's been an uptick in suicide amongst youth, especially nationwide, and we've been affected in our city 2 times this year of a teenager who's committed suicide. So I just wanted to take the opportunity to make that announcement and let everyone know that our community engagement team has been working in that regard also. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you for the updates. Planning staff, anything else to bring up?
I just wanted to let the Human Relations Commission know that Karen Flum is leaving the city of Fargo at the end of next week. She's accepted a job in another jurisdiction, and we wish her great success and a lot of future opportunities ahead of her. And we thank her for her last 2 years in supporting the city of Fargo, the Human Relations Commission, and the Planning Department. So I just wanted to congratulate her and acknowledge her change. So I wanted to let you know that as well.
And if I could just add, thank you so much. It's been an honor working with you folks and the new folks that have come on board as well in the time that I've been here. So thank you for your work, and I look forward to watching, but from afar.
Thanks, Karen.
Congratulations, Karen. You kept us together. You'll be missed. Okay. We'll move on to number 10. Is there any other business?
Mr. Chair, if I could just ask one question of the committee?
Yes.
Would you be interested in that information that we have and an explanation of that information relative to traffic stops? Because I'd be happy to bring that to a future meeting.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, I think the breakdown itself would be generally fantastic to see. Okay. So the commission will use the remaining time to meet in the subcommittees. Committees are welcome to meet in the city commission chambers, or if you would like to meet upstairs in a planning department conference room, please let staff know. A memo with an agenda template for the subcommittees is included in your packet. A staff member will be working with each group today to be a resource or answer questions you may have. This meeting of the Human Relations Commission stands adjourned. Our next meeting is scheduled for June 17th at noon.
Oh, are we done?
Yes.
But for the good of the group, I want to say that work group number 3 are overachievers. We already met earlier this week. So
Congratulations.
thank you.